so much for inviting me to join you guys. This has been a tremendous night. Okay, this is a short story called Exchange the Student. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Madame Liederman said I'd get extra credit if we took in a French exchange student for the summer. My mom was the only do-gooder in our family, so I would have said no if I weren't getting a B+. I really liked French class. My friend Rebecca, who went on to MIT, sat next to me, and I copied off her assiduously. I scored 4th in the state on the national French exam. When I couldn't read Rebecca's answers because her elbow obscured the page, I'd look at the clock, and in whichever quadrant the second hand fell became my choice. I also scored so high on my PSAT, I was presented to the Honor Society. I'd sat next to my younger brother, and the proctor wandered off. Robbie handed me his completed test, and when he thought I was coloring in my response ovals too slowly, he yanked it out of my hand to do it himself. Madame, I really am sorry about sitting on Mr. Riddick's lap. It's nothing, she waved her hand. You were in the moment. It kind of upset my mom. Can you ask her about the exchange student stuff? Fine, she said. An A would look so nice on your applications. And can you see if Mr. Riddick's mad? I was the star of a French musical where I played a spacey young hooker in wartime. I had a crush on Mr. Riddick, my history teacher, and I climbed off the stage to do a can-can up to his seat. He only came to the production once. The last time the show ran, someone from backstage had to come help me out of the velvet curtain I rolled myself up in during a dance number and got stuck. I started panicking since I couldn't breathe, and all you could see were my little stilettos chopping at the air. When I got unrolled, I collapsed on stage and glanced at my mom, who was rapidly fanning herself with her head tipped back. The 3 high schools in Charlottesville had an exchange program with a high school in Rennes. We drove over to the Blackburns' house, the way station, to pick up David. The Blackburns got a cute girl who wore Gautier-ish stripes, and after a week only wanted to shop at Sam's Club. She'd never seen 200-count boxes of corn dogs before. David, in jean shorts and a tank top, picked up his satchel and waited for Mom to open the screen door. Mom looked over at Sally Blackburn, who'd had David for the last 4 hours. Sorry, Sally whispered. No one wanted him. She shoved us out to the carport. Oui, this town... David fizzled air out his out his feline lips, making his mustache shimmy. He surveyed us with roosterish bravado. Mom leaned against the car, gnawing her lip. Robbie leaned over from the back seat and depressed the horn. He didn't take a lot of crap. I, however, wanted David to like me now that I could tell he wouldn't. I'd wanted to show off for a new charge that afternoon, so I wore my U2 Unforgettable Fire concert tee, a 3-tier tie-dyed skirt, and my Mia moccasins. He looked me up and down and turned away, bored. After years of us hosting our alcoholic Aunt Jean in the guest room, Dad knew instinctively to stay at the lab till 9. Mom was volunteering at the CT ward and was gone a lot of the day. We really didn't have any specifics about what to do with these students, so we clustered with other kids around schools in Charlottesville who'd also taken them on. It was a little like the front lines in battle. We stared down the enemy, took them out for frozen yogurt, and just wanted our own beds back. Robbie retired upstairs to his bedroom after we got home from picking up David and flipped on music. I busied myself doing nothing. I glanced at David to see if he was watching me even slyly, but he wasn't. Mom was pounding out pastry dough in the kitchen, humming to herself. I walked to the living room sofa to try to get the cat to lick my hand, but Grindel was asleep. The oven fan erupted and Grindel's ears pricked at the racket. David walked over and scratched her tenderly. I watched in horror. Who did he think he was? That was my cat to ignore. After David stopped stroking Grindel, she got up and hung out at the front door looking for her chance to escape. She clawed the screen open, cantered to the 4th stair, and stopped abruptly to sniff. A crow hustled in the tree, looked down and cawed. David dashed out the door and scooped up Grindel, who torqued and jumped from his arms. Grindel's tail flicked aggressively while she lowered her meow into a deep bass howl. She rammed herself into a bush, trying to get out. He brought her back inside, muttering gibberish that made Grindel fawn. He turned his back to me and started clipping the cat's claws. Mom waved goodbye and headed out to volunteer at the hospital. Robbie loped down to the kitchen from his bedroom. He crinkled his nose. I can smell David up the stairs. He smells like a lady. Shh, I know. Kristen, this guy has problems. We looked over at David, clipping his own nails and building a pyramid with them near the fruit bowl. It might get me a better grade, I said. We got to put up with it. Couldn't you have just studied harder? I shook my head no and considered our options for the afternoon. David, I turned and said, tu veux go out to the country to voir Henri? Qu'est-ce qu'on mange? He dug his finger in his ear. Je veux la pizza. Avec moi? The three of us got the pizza to go and drove over to the courts at Albemarle High to play some tennis. We had a bunch of rackets in the trunk. David grasped one and made an annoyed snort like that was the best we had, which it wasn't, but some of our better rackets we'd stolen from the Boar's Head Country Club and didn't want them paraded around. Robbie let David win set after set. He was engineering bad plays to get David's ego up. David smiled smartly at my brother, who registered it with his most humble grace. Robbie served the yellow rocket straight into David's testicles, pumped his fist in the air and screamed, voila! David slumped to the pebbly court. He curled in agony, then raised himself like a new foal. We threw our rackets down and beat it into the woods. Robbie and I regrouped by the stationery store and took the long route back to our car. When we got home, David was waiting for us in the backyard, holding himself by the magnolia. Alors, je kill you. He poked at the air and drew a step towards us. Run! I shrieked. I started groping for the keys. Robbie strode to the door and locked it on David's face. David had a large rock in his hand and seethed, Je t'attends ici, bastard, which meant loosely, I something bastard. Robbie strutted down the hall, dropping the pizza box on the wing back. He's just one who doesn't feel self-doubt. How we're related baffles me. I stood there wringing my hands since I didn't want to be a bad host and make him stay outside all day bleeding or say something bad about me to Madame. The afternoon sun made David's hair blacker and his pale skin spectral. He'd twitch his lip every few seconds, exposing a jaundiced canine. I watched him with acute interest since Mom was going to be home, and she'd wonder what we did with him. Robbie strode up the stairs to his bedroom, opened the window, and cocked his BB gun. My eyes widened. I cut my hand over my mouth to hide a small smile. Dave, he hollered, did you really think you could beat me at tennis? Robbie started shooting. David threw rocks at the window, but we were 3 stories up and he couldn't make it past the rhododendron. Robbie popped another one, hitting the monkey grass a few feet from David. Robbie, you're going to hurt him. Step back. I'll shoot you next for bringing that stooge. Kids, I'm home, Mom yelled from the sitting room. She must have come in through the side door. We didn't hear her car since the puffy kickback was making us dizzy, plus we were shooting someone. Robbie slammed the window and we thundered down to the kitchen to see if she had brought us any snacks. By the time we finished our pizza rolls, David had left the yard. We acted dumb when Mom got worried around dinner time. He's probably off with his friends, Robbie said. We tried playing with him today. Thanks, kids. Mom gazed at us generously. You guys have been amazing. I'm really proud of you sharing your life with him. When we retired to bed, I could see David sleeping out by the tree. I was so worried he'd kill us in our sleep, I double-locked the doors after we turned in. The next day, Robbie glumly opened the car and I handed David a cream cheese bagel. We drove him out to our friend Amy's in Earlysville. She lived in a huge white shingled house with few neighbors around to hear. Her family was hosting another prick, Henri, who spent the day reading Vogue. Robbie and Amy went to the barn to play Tetris. David told Henri what happened. This was clear because they both finally looked at me. In a way, I was glad. Then they chased me under a Chevy's rust-gunk truck bed in the backyard with a rolled-up magazine. I made a break for the house after half an hour, hollering and crying, betrayed by the closest thing I'd ever had to a boyfriend. They trotted after me and barricaded me in the bathroom with a piano bench. I hung out there all day until Amy's mom came back from work. Robbie had no idea I spent the afternoon sitting on a toilet. We drove home in silence, staring out the window at the frolicking goats. When Mom returned from her errand, she told us all to wash up. We were going to the Chang house. It was Chinese on one side, Japanese on the other. We sat in the middle, undecided. David was still gloating, picking at his gums with a chopstick. I started to feel sick with my own shortcomings. Hey, Mom, I said in my slowest, deepest voice. Robbie looked at me curiously. It wasn't like me to complain. David really scared me today. What are you talking about? I pushed away the vinegary daikon, my favorite, in an effort to look sullen. If anyone was going to destroy my first relationship, it would be me. Out at Amy's, David tried to hurt me pretty bad. I glanced at Robbie. I was really scared. I pinched myself to keep from smiling. David dipped his egg roll in the orange goop and smirked. She is fast runner, not like the cat. Robbie shuddered with pleasure. Mom stood, picked David up by the sleeve, and marched him out of the restaurant. She drove him straight to the Blackburns' house. I watched them leave with practiced stupidity. I asked the waiter to make the kung pao extra hot. Our eyes were soaked. By the time Mom returned to pay, Robbie and I looked orphaned. She apologized for ruining our summer. Thank you.